Welcome, everybody. We are so glad you're here. I am Tracy Wainwright, the Christian writing coach, and today I am here with Krislyn. And Krislyn, I didn't even double check. I'm pronouncing your name right.
You are. You are. You've got it.
Good. I always try to check with spellings that are maybe a little bit unique. I have a daughter whose name is Alyssa, but the way that it's spelled, people don't always pronounce it right. So I usually try to check that ahead of
You know
time.
that.
We're glad you're here with us today. We are talking about the author journey and how we can use our experiences and our author journeys to help you on your author journey. And so we're just going to dive in. Krislyn, if you could just tell us a little bit about you and your writing background, and then we'll jump into some topics that will hopefully be very beneficial for those who are watching this.
Sure thing. Yeah, so I'm one of those people who I've basically been a writer all my life. I was writing little ditties when I was, 7 and 8 years old, and my dad embarrassingly kept them all for, my autobiographer one day. But I people always commented my writing or complimented my writing. I always knew I was good at it, and I took this grueling class in AP language
Mm.
in high school, and I had this brilliant teacher named Mr. Kemp. He's now retired, might be Dr. Kemp at this point, but he just really put us through the ringer. He taught us all about writing. He taught us how to chop up our sentences, how to vary the syntax and everything. He taught us how to basically make the writing craft good. He forced us to read all these books. He just redlined all of my essays and said, no, go back, do it again.
Yep.
For this reason, I basically refuse to do any more writing classes because I'm like, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
Good Lord, never again. Um, but I felt like that really taught me how to write. And then went through college, I went through grad school, gave up writing for a while because nobody got time for that. And then a little bit later in life, I was like, this is something I used to love to do. And I would write journal entries that were just brutally long. And I would be like, why am I writing journals when I could be writing novels? And
Ah,
so I started to shift that energy and I started to ask, why am I incapable of writing a book? And I'm sure we're gonna get into this question here in a second. I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but basically, a few specific pressures were put on me, and I developed a little bit of discipline because writing does usually take a little bit of discipline, if not a lot. And
mhm.
all of a sudden, I started completing full works.
Mm.
So that was kind of how I became the person that I am today. And what I'm pretty passionate about because I'm like, I didn't think I was going to get here. And then I just kind of worked on myself and I got here. So now I want
Mm.
other people to get here as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, go ahead and just jump into how you turn that dream into a book. Because obviously you're
Right,
at the point where you went from, maybe you had an inkling of an idea,
right.
after that writing class. And then, like you said, we know life kind of takes over sometimes. How did you turn that dream into a book? What was that
Right.
journey like for you?
Right. So I realized that I was always starting books. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have this great idea, and I'd start a book. And usually I would start out with The Force of 10,000 Suns. And then about 4 days in, I was just like, I can't do it anymore. I'll do this later and never pick it back up, like so many of us have done before.
Yeah.
And then I started questioning, why is this happening? So I gave myself a challenge and I said, I'm going to write a book in 10 days and I'm going to write 1,000 words a day and I'm just going to get it done. And so this is before I knew I was a pantser. So I plotted my book out, which
Yeah.
of course got completely destroyed.
Yep.
And, um, and I just said, okay, let's do this. I can commit to 10 days. And the same thing happened. I started out with a force of 10,000 suns. And about day 4, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I started to learn about myself. And I was like, no, you're going to keep doing it. You're going to do 1,000 words a day. So let's go. So days 4, 5, 6 were brutal. Day 7 was a little bit better. And then I could see the end. And I was like, I can do this. And I finished it. And what I learned about myself was that I was sort of afraid of the center of that book and of doing the work. And I'm like, oh, if I can learn to overcome this,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I can become a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as so I finished that book and it was awful because it was my first book.
A familiar
But
feel. Yep, a familiar
I
feel.
learned I learned my process. And
Yeah.
so a couple months later I said I'm gonna do it again. And I did it again. And then some really truly horrible things happened in my life.
Mm.
But what it did was it the diamond effect where it just puts pressure on you. And
Mhm.
so this horrible traumatic thing had happened. I
Mm.
wrote a book in a month. It was my first novella. I published it. It was awful, but a couple people bought it, and I learned so much from it. I
Yeah.
learned how to do dialogue better, how to plot better. I learned that sometimes tropes are important because nobody wants a book about two sisters. They really don't. Um, and and I started to learn, and then I was like, okay, I've done that, and then so the force of this traumatic thing that had happened was still majorly on me, and I was seeing things a lot deeper, and I was like, I saw this huge problem of societal sin in the world
Mm.
because in what had happened to me, what I noticed most was that nobody in society was willing to stand up to this evil
Mm.
that had happened to me. And I just said, okay, nobody's willing to be good. And I started to recognize that evil is allowed to persist when good men do nothing.
Mhm.
And for some reason, I connected strongly with the story of Sodom and Gomorrah,
Mhm.
and I started to connect strongly with Lot's wife. And I
Mm.
was like, maybe she's not just this evil person, maybe she's all of us.
Mm.
And I started to go deeper into that story and really bring all that trauma and the observations I was making about life and start to fuse them together. And that became my debut novel, which is For the Sake of Tin Men, which is a retelling of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Mhm.
And I spent 2 years writing that as I was processing this trauma that had happened. And I poured all of my emotions into that. And I pulled all these events that were happening in my own life and I poured them into the book.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so I did like a year of writing and a year of developmental editing and crying mostly.
Mhm.
And then one day God said, go, just publish it. Is it not ready? I'm like, no, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And God was like, I said go. And he's breaking my perfectionism off of me and saying, you have a beautiful product here. You have a story to tell. You have a message that the Christian community needs to hear about complacency and not standing up for what's right.
Mm.
And so I published it. And wouldn't say I have the gift of popularity per se. Like usually when I do a book launch, approximately two people buy the book, and then literally all of my friends like just ghost me for months. And I'm like, really? But it has been selling little by little, and I see God's faithfulness in that. And right after that, God was like, I think I challenged myself, and I was like, well, I wrote this big book, and I learned how to write a book. Why not a romance? Romance sells. I didn't know that romance was like a big thing until I wrote this big, huge, angry, apocalyptic book. And all the men were like, we really want to read that. I was like, I didn't know that men were into apocalyptic stuff. I didn't know that was my target audience for
Yeah.
that book.
Yeah.
And then, I learned that women love reading romance. And I was like, I can write a romance. So I wrote one in 4 days. I just sprinted the whole thing because I was like, I don't know how long I could stick with this.
You were not wanting to get to day 5 where
No. So I wrote like 17,000 words in 4 days,
wow.
and I expanded a little bit when I edited it,
Mm.
and it was just this cute little playful book, and that's Love in the Age of Memes. I do not know. I just like it's whatever was in my brain. Apparently, I have a love-hate relationship with social media, so I slapped that down, and everybody loved it. It was a crowd pleaser, and I was like, well, there we go. So now I have two books.
Yeah. Well, and I love that there were so many different steps along your writing journey and how, you talked about the one book and you read it really quickly, but it was really awful, but then you kept writing because
Right.
what's the one thing that you have to do to get better at writing?
Right.
You
You have
have
to
to
make the
write.
mistakes.
Yeah,
My
absolutely.
my dad actually always told me he was one of the major forces on me to develop this writing gift as I grew up. He said, "You got to write the bad ones to get to the good ones."
Absolutely.
And every time I would write a real stinker, he'd be like, "Hey, you got to write the bad ones first." So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I think that, when I first started writing, I heard some of that advice and get used to
yeah,
rejection and all that. And you think, oh, well, I'm going to be the one who just writes the best novel in the world
right,
time around.
right,
And I don't think that person exists because even those like their breakout novel is like the one that just becomes a bestseller. We don't
right,
know how many tens or hundreds of thousands of words that they
exactly,
wrote behind the scenes that never
exactly.
saw the light of day because the craft takes work to
It
develop.
does, it
So,
does.
and then when you're good at it, you get the experience, you develop, how do you develop the plot? How do you develop your character?
Right,
how do
Right.
you get this story on paper so that it touches people and it reaches them? And then it does become easier. Every book you won't be able to write in 4 days, probably.
No.
Now, if you're
I
doing
won't do it again.
novella size, that is definitely easier. And yeah, I think I have, I don't know, between 5 and 8 books that I've started that I'm
Yeah.
getting back to, but I'm like, I know I can finish books. I have 25
Yeah.
published and I have let's see, 6 7 more with my publisher that are done and just waiting on their release date. So I
Yeah.
know that I can finish a book.
Right.
I think that
Right.
that's encouraging to ourselves to kind of have
Yeah.
that behind us, because
Yeah.
before that you kept getting to 4 days and stuck, and then four
Right.
days and stuck. And when you made that commitment,
Yeah.
so all the varied experience I think will really resonate with people that are in
Yeah.
places of their writing journey. And you talked a little bit about your inspiration
Mhm.
behind your writing. Is there anything that maybe you didn't cover you'd like to add?
Um, I think for me, it's just like always a continual process of like, there's always more to learn.
Mm,
Like, for instance, right now I'm like, yay, I can finish books. This is great. So my debut novel, I did something interesting. I chopped it up. Apparently, point of view hopping is frowned upon. I think that's all I do. I absolutely love point of view hopping. I'm like, when people are like, "Oh, you need to stay in the same head," I'm like, "I'm
yeah.
about to jump because tell me what to do in my books." But I pointed. That was like the only thing I did. I actually told the story from like 5 different perspectives, and
Hmm.
I'm like, it's art. No, the real reason that I did that was that um I didn't really know how to switch points of view within the same chapter. I was
Right,
struggling with that. Like I
right,
didn't know how to tell this person and then to move on to like a different scene within the same chapter. So I
right.
was like, I'm just going to divide it up into different sections and tell from each character one at a time, which was an artistic choice and worked great.
Perfect. Yeah.
But, it's something that, like, for, right now I'm working on a book that God is challenging me to publish by the end of the month, and I'm like, "Oh, dear sweet Jesus, like, give me grace because this is a
Yeah.
lot." But, this new one is called, Death by Guillotine and
Mm,
Other High-End Services, and it's, gallows humor, it's a workplace comedy, and then it kinda leans crime and heist as well towards the end. Um, but in this one, I'm experimenting more with, like, okay, do I can look at different aspects of the plot within the same chapter, which of course is something that you read in books all the time, but
yeah.
just not something that I have personally been comfortable with until now. And
Right.
so, yeah, and I'm in the developmental editing stages, and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? And I'm like, well, the book has no romance in it. People like romance. Should I stick a romance in there? So I'm
Mm,
like, all right, these two characters sort of have a natural chemistry. What if I built that up? And I'm like, how do I put this in? Is it okay to put this in? What if I do a weird? What if this reflects on my own romantic like know-how? Like, what am I doing here? And just learning
yeah.
how to be like, let's put this little side plot in here and how to do it gently and be like, you don't got to change the whole thing. Just put a new
Right.
chapter in, write a new scene, and you're done. Easy.
Right. Right. Well, and
Yeah,
I think that's a good point that sometimes the stories write themselves.
they do.
Sometimes we have to step back and evaluate what will work and what won't.
Right.
And talking to people who haven't gone through the process of writing a book, they're like, oh, you have an idea, you write the idea, you have a book. And it's just not that smooth of a
It's
process. And I
messy.
imagine that there's some new author out there watching this who's going, oh my gosh, I thought I was so weird that I questioned
Right.
my plot or what to put in or
Right.
what to take out or what to
Right.
include. And I just want to encourage anyone else who's having
Right.
those thoughts or been through that, completely normal and it's okay. And I think that's just part of the creative process.
It
There are
is.
some books where, yeah, I pretty much know A, B, C, D through Z. I know exactly how the plot's going to go. I know
Right.
all the steps it's going to take. I know all the subplots from the very beginning. I do the outlining, I do the brainstorming and all of that. And then there's other books where I kind of know where it's beginning and where it's ending and really have to let the characters in the story write themselves in the middle because I don't know, some books just feel like they need to be in charge of how the story
That's
goes.
all of my books.
Yeah. And I'm very much, it depends on the book. It's really weird. Um,
That's
but
interesting.
I've learned that to dig into deepening my characters and deepening
Yeah,
plots, sometimes I need that more planning, but also sometimes I'll get to a chapter and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. How fun is that?
I know. I
So,
know. Yeah, no, my characters have a mind of their own. On a regular
yeah,
basis, I think I know where the plot's going. And
yeah,
then my
yeah,
characters do something completely different. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh, it's usually very interesting. And I've gotten to the point where I sort of trust my writing intuition. And
Hmm.
when the plot starts to go very awry, I'm like, you need to trust it. I have this theory that the plots already in the characters already exist. It's just our job to write them down.
Yeah.
And so that's actually we haven't quite gotten to the writer's block question yet, but
Well, we're ready to dive in. I was just going to go to that next. I was waiting,
nice. I
but
love
yeah,
it.
you're
I love it.
there. Let's
Yeah.
jump.
Yeah, no, I struggle with writer's block like everybody else. There are a couple of ways I've learned to overcome it. One is to deal with emotional blocks that like if you're not feeling good that day, it's going to affect your writing. If
Yeah.
you're like, man, everything is crap, like I don't want to do this right now, don't. Go do something you want to do. You need to have your creative juices flowing. Another thing is don't do other creative stuff because your creative juices are all in like the same box. So if you're like I really want to write, stop being musical or start being artistic and just like let that stuff build up
Mm,
until it shoots out.
yeah.
um, Another joke that I have is that I don't commit myself to all day writing.
Yeah.
Instead, I had 3 kids and now I have an hour a day to write. So instead of being like, "Man, I should write. Shame on me. I feel so guilty. I should have been writing this entire day." And then you just like curl into a ball and implode because you feel so bad for not writing. No, make yourself very, very busy. And then that 1 hour that you have to write a day, you've had time in your brain to work out all the plots to be like, I think I want to go this way with it. And you can sit down and in a single hour, knock it out.
Yeah.
That's another good way. But the main thing I wanted to say was that, yeah, being a pantser, I go to this place spiritually, you could say. I just kind of sink into my subconscious. And like, I don't have time to figure out what Diane is going to do with the triplets. I don't know where that came from, but like, I don't have time to figure out, okay, where is my plot going to go? I just need to write it. So I just sit down and I'm like, okay, Diane, what are we doing today? A lot of people say it's like a movie. I don't think it's like a movie. I think that's a weird comparison. But you do just like go into that spot and say like, hello people in my plot, like what are you going to do today, and let them play it out for you like you're watching them, and you should be able to see it pretty clearly in your mind. And don't even think, just write down everything that you see, and then when it feels like the scene is done, then you're done. And I sometimes, even when I have writer's block, usually that means that emotionally I'm not ready to write something.
Mm,
um if I go in and I'm like, no, I'm going to visualize this scene, I will still see it. And I've also noticed that if I'm taking a book in a direction that the book doesn't want to go, I'll say
mm,
that that means I'm writing it the wrong way. And that will give me tremendous writer's block. If I'm like, okay, well, I want this guy to go this way. Like if that's my own will, my own plot, but it's just not working. And I'm like, why can't I figure this out? Stop what you're doing, sit back for a second, and let the character do what the character wants to do. And
yeah.
then all of a sudden, your plot is going to shoot forward. Because I feel like if you can tap into, like, I don't know, if you believe that like books are already written in heaven and we just kind of bring them down to earth or something like that, if like you're meant to be an author and you just kind of take the book from where it is in heaven and bring and pull it down, if you're trying to write the book in a direction that the book isn't, that will be difficult.
Yeah, well, and I think too, you kind of touched on this, but didn't say it directly when you talked about developmentally editing and just
Mhm.
kind of pushing through, like just the knowledge that when you're going back through your story, if there's anything that's not a good fit, that's gonna stick out. And I
Yeah.
think we get in trouble by wanting it to be perfect the first time around
Yeah.
and being willing to, um, write something we may have to cut out or alter in a significant way later to make
Yeah.
better and not be so concerned about, I have to get it perfect this first go round. Now, like you said, if there's a direction the story is going and you're like, yeah, this really doesn't work this way, making a
Yeah.
pivot, but also writing in such a way so that you're willing to be a harsh editor with yourself for the good of your story and your book. And I think I find that very freeing that I
Yeah. Yeah.
always correct what needs to be correcting, always edit, always revise. But I
Right.
tell people you can't revise what isn't written. And so if you never push through that and are
True.
willing to write it poorly or
Yeah.
to write it in maybe a direction you may need to shift, then you don't have anything to revise and you'll never get through. And I find that very freeing. And that
Yeah.
eliminate the blocks, those emotional blocks, those I have to get it right blocks, those it
Right.
has to be
Right.
the perfect story the first time blocks that
Yeah.
in the writing process.
I was gonna say something just now and I might have forgotten. Oh, one thing that I started doing was instead of trying to write to finish something, which I'm guilty of, or trying to write to make money or trying to write to market, blah blah blah. Um, e- One way that God helped me to not feel stressed out or pressured when I was writing. He was like, just write to have fun. And
Mhm.
if I would write a bunch of stuff and I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to keep that in my story, he's like, well,
Yeah,
did you have fun with it? And I'm like, I did have fun with it. He's like, then
yeah,
it's good. Then it's time well spent.
right.
And now I'm trying to kind of build my following by posting various stories and stuff on I don't know, places like Wattpad and Substack and stuff,
Hmm.
not necessarily to be published. So if you write a brilliant little fragment of story that isn't going to be able to remain in the novel, post it as like a free or like,
Yeah,
something in it to your loyal following. Does
yeah,
anybody have a
that's
loyal
a great
following? I don't
idea.
have a loyal
Thinking,
following. But
yeah,
yeah,
like my
use it
mystery
somehow.
has a whole like the prologue, the entire prologue got cut out of my mystery
Yeah.
with my publisher, and that would be a great teaser um,
Hmm.
for my audience to go like, we don't ever really find out what happened to my character, but I actually did write what happened, but leaving the mystery there. So I love that, and that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
I was just that leads me to, if you had to pick like one or two pieces of advice, that one included, that's like just the best writing advice you've ever been given, what would that be for you?
Thinking before I hit that question, I was just gonna piggyback
Oh
off
yeah,
of what you just
absolutely.
said.
Yes.
For Death by Guillotine, I started it. I started with a character. I actually read somebody else's book, and they had this character that I thought was funny, and I started to think about that character. And then I wrote the first chapter of this book, and it ended. The book ended up being nothing like the first chapter, but it was a good first chapter. I was like, "What do I do with this?" I made it one of my epilogues,
Oh.
and to look like it was building off of that because it was a first chapter and I made it look like the business that I had created was franchising and it
Mm,
was going someplace else. So that's how I use that. So I didn't ditch the first chapter and my beta readers have loved it so far. So it's
yeah.
working.
Yeah.
Anyway, you just asked for
Yeah.
two pieces of advice that I would give people.
Yeah.
Um,
Just
like the best advice
the
that I've
best.
had for writing. Was that what it was?
Yeah, the best writing advice that you've gotten that you can share with other new and aspiring authors.
Sure. Uh, Two, okay, so I'm sure there's tons of writing advice. I actually started writing a book called How to Write a Book, which is completely presumptuous of me, but people seem to need it, so whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I think, oddly, my first piece of advice is going to be get some therapy.
Mm,
Like, by which I mean, you have so many books within you or you have a vision within you and you're like what's preventing me from writing, if you can conquer the emotions and the negative traits that are holding you back as a person, then
yeah.
as you release and explode into your vision for your life, your writing, because that's part of God's destiny for your life, is going to come with it. So get yourself into some counseling, get yourself into some therapy, and start working through your roadblocks in like a major way. I see all the time online people being like, I told my mom, and this is kind of mean, but I think it's true too. I'm like, I started publishing books, which means I switched from hanging out with writers to hanging out with marketers. And I'm like, and the difference is night and day. Writers are whiners. They just sit there and cry over their
Mm,
project, which they fully believe is terrible,
mm,
and just weep on things. And I'm like, no, 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 no. When you start talking to marketers, they're confident, they know exactly what they want, generally
Yep.
speaking.
Yep.
They're ready to damn the torpedoes and full speed ahead. And I'm like, I don't really like hanging out with writers. So the point of that is that if you don't have confidence in what you've written, why should anybody else? So
Yeah.
if you can get through that and improve your self-esteem and
Mhm.
improve your confidence in writing, everything will just flow easier. So yes, working on your own Christ-centered identity is just crucial in the writing process. And second, if you've never done it before, um, learn how grammar works, learn how
Oh,
to write a killer sentence, have
yes.
confidence in your writing and editing ability, take an editing class, offer
Mhm.
to edit for somebody else, and learn how to do those things. Because so often I read writing, and it's not that they don't have a gift, it's that they've never taken high school English. And if you can do that,
Yep.
like frequently I give my writing to ARC readers or beta readers and they're like, oh, thank God. Like they'll say something like, oh, well, you didn't have any grammar problems. I'm like, why would I have grammar problems? English is my native language.
Yep. Yep. Yeah,
But
but
it's a
yeah,
huge
it's
thing.
a it's an epidemic of
Yeah, so take a course and not only learn the mechanics of
yeah.
English, but there are some really basic things that, as I mentioned, I learned in AP language that you can do to spice any sentence, paragraph, chapter up, make it really tight, really quickly, take a day and be done with it. And
Yep.
if you can do that, then I notice this is my pet peeve that writers get hugely taken advantage of, particularly in social media these days.
Mhm.
There are writers who are just like, hi, I need an editor. Editors are great. I would recommend an editor for anyone. But
Yeah.
these are people who are just slobbering on themselves. And
Yeah.
I'm like, stop doing that.
Yeah.
Learn how to do these basic things. Learn how to set a book on the shelf for 3 months, come back to it and self edit. Learn how to do this. It's something you can do. And
Yeah.
stop being taken so advantage of by these people who are like, oh, I can edit your book for you. It's no problem. And just have the confidence, know how to
Mm.
command your craft,
Mm.
and the rest will come much more easily.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll add to that, and I tell everyone AI editing programs
Right.
are 50% accurate. That is my experience. And if somebody has put in their manuscript through Grammarly and then they send it to me to edit, because I'm a professional editor as
Right.
well, I
Right.
can tell
Right.
every single time by where the commas are and
Yes.
how the word usage, and it's not throughout the whole book, but I mean even like one sentence per chapter, I'm like, yep, that was Grammarly or that was Word AI. And
Uh-huh.
so it's great for catching your words that are misspelled, unless it's a
Right.
phone. They're pretty good at commas, but not always. And so yeah, and then the thing I would add to that, learning grammar is the thesaurus is a writer's best friend. Like
Yeah.
it just is. We all get into patterns of word usage. Our culture does not encourage us to use a variety of words.
That's
I
true.
was listening to somebody earlier today, and he was talking about reading Frederick Douglass's work and how this person who was born a slave and had to um, sneak to learn to read
Right.
had words in his writing that
That
this
we don't have to
modern
do.
day, very educated person had to look up.
Yeah.
So you don't want to go wild and crazy and have, two or three dozen words in your book that people have to look up. Or like, oh, isn't it cheating using the thesaurus? I'm like, no, that is a resource.
Yes.
Resource is your best friend. Don't, like you
Yes.
said, learn the grammar, but also be willing to use a dictionary, be willing to use a thesaurus. You don't even have to have a paper one. There's an app on my phone that I use if you're on your
Oh,
computer,
nice.
thesaurus.com. Like there's so many resources. We have no excuse for having poor grammar and repetitive word usage throughout our manuscripts.
It's true. I probably need to hear that as well. I was thinking about how, like, if you read the Gettysburg Address, it's like a much higher. I had to memorize that once in middle school. That's why I use that
Mhm.
example. It's like a
Yeah.
much higher use of English. And I'm like, whoa, like, we might have to rethink our education system.
Yeah,
Like, this was in the 1800s.
I don't think we're smarter than the Americans of the 17 and 1800s. I really We have more ease and we have more technology, but yeah,
Yeah,
language
not
wise,
smarter.
we have a long way to go that we can improve. So, well, I am just so grateful, Krislyn, for you coming
Yes.
on today. And
Yes.
I know life is busy, and so what our audience doesn't know is she has three little ones, and she just so graciously took her time to come and talk to us today about writing and her writing journey and to give back to other
Yeah.
authors. And I'm just so grateful for that and for your time. And
Yeah.
we'll have all your links and all your information in the description for the
Yep.
episode. And I just encourage everybody to connect with you and to check out whether
You.
you're a romance or whether you're a apocalyptic reader, or both, perhaps. Maybe
Yeah.
a husband and wife can, hey, I'll read this one, you'll read that one. No, I like
Yes.
a little bit more adventure myself. So, um,
That's cool.
yeah, yeah. So, but thank you so much for joining, sharing, and you hear the little one there, and that's fine.
Right.
Roll with it. We're a lot of us are moms, so we are so
That
cool.
is true.
Yeah, and just thank you for taking your
And
time.
thank you for the invite.
A-
I appreciated it. This was fun.
Absolutely. And yeah, we could talk all day, but I have a
I
feeling my
know.
kids would not be happy about that.
Yeah. Things slowly unravel, don't they? You're like, it's
Oh,
fine. It's fine. I'm
yeah.
fine.
Yes, my kids were when they were little were always quiet until I was on the phone. So,
Yes. They know.
yeah, but that's, you know what? That's encouragement, hopefully, to another mom writer out
It's
there
true.
that
It's true. It
even
can
through
be done.
hurdles, you
Yeah. On writers, 1 hour a day, and in bits and pieces on my cell phone throughout the day. It works.
great. Yes. And I'm glad we got that little tidbit in because
I'm
there's
glad we did. It's
I
important.
know I know there's somebody who's watching this who needed to hear that. So,
Yes.
all right, writers, until next time, happy writing.
All right.